I'm going to start briefly by talking about where I come from. I've got 3 minutes, so I have to be quick. I go to school in Bath. I've been at the same school since I was 11, and I got involved in the environmental group there. I think for me, climate change is the biggest issue that are facing young people and facing the planet today. I've conveniently had that introduced for me. Like in my school, we had a little group that were focusing on sort of writing letters to stop whaling and things like that, but it didn't interest me. Like, to me, climate change is about people, and environmental issues are really about people. This is about creating a planet for us and for our future. And so I changed that, and at my school I tried to make practical change. I tried to start putting in sort of recycling systems, and I started to get people to save energy. And kind of it worked a little bit, but time and time again, I came up the barriers from our senior management at school. And I've got some people from my school in the audience and possibly a teacher, so I won't go into too much detail. But I found them like quite difficult to work with, and they didn't quite understand like the magnitude of the problem I felt. Like, many of you might have thought about it and found it quite. It is a huge issue, and it can be really hard to think where to start. And you often find that when you try and explain it to people, they just don't quite get it. And this really peaked one year when it's a bit of a ridiculous story, but I was offered a prize by my school. I guess most of you have prize givings for different subjects, and there was a prize for contribution to the environmental action group, which I got given. It was the first year they did this, and I was so furious at my school for not listening to any of the things, not only me, but this one was about 14 or 15, but like people who's younger than me were saying to them that I was considering rejecting this award and giving it back. And I really didn't like. I was in a bit of a state, and I basically ended up in my deputy head's office in tears about climate change and about the future. It's completely ridiculous, I know. And like this deputy head had only been on the job 2 weeks. I imagine how she felt. It must have been impossible. But I think this is quite a natural reaction, really. One confronted with such a big issue. Like, I'm sure none of you have cried. Well, I'm sure none of you have cried about climate change. Not quite as silly as I am, but it's a really huge task, and it's easy to be overwhelmed. Like, there's not many other paths to take. There's denial, there's ignorance, just ignore it entirely, and there's doing something. And that's what I've tried to do since then. Like, I expect many of you saw the film the same way, and maybe watching An Inconvenient Truth, as mentioned before. Like, that film, it's great, other than just being the story of Al Gore rather than the story of climate change. It's great, but it's more about this is climate change, and it's not about this is what we can do. And I think most people have watched that. I found very few young people that have watched that and gone away from it and done something. I've only found older people that can respond to fear. I'm not sure why that is, but that's just how it works. And I think we really need to look for solutions, and kind of we all recognise that this is something we have to tackle positively and can't just be scared into doing something about. So, really, this is overwhelming, and obviously, individually we can't solve it. We need to work as a community and collaborate. Every task that people see, getting into space, for example, like you see the space shuttle and you watch documentaries about it and see how many millions of components it had, and each of them is individually engineered. And the prospect of building that in your head is completely incomprehensible. But we did get to space. We do have the capability to work together and collaborate effectively to build solutions. In many ways, we as young people can communicate better than our parents. I said this earlier, and Charlotte said, yes, you can communicate better than your parents. And we have tools like the internet allow us to create new communities and non-geographic communities and work together better than people have ever before. This is an issue of justice between generations. It's us standing up and saying to our parents that they have to leave resources and a planet that can cater for us and will leave us with the same state of well-being as they experienced. I think we have to stand up for that, and we have to use the tools we have available. We're even denied the vote. Like we're told time and time again that our system is democratic, and we have to stand up for things. But when an issue is fundamentally affecting people under 18 that cannot vote more than anything, what can we do? Well, we have to exercise our democratic right in some way, and I think that's through action and creative action. It's through telling people older than you that have power, okay, this is what you have to do. And it's not only doing that, it's ignoring that completely and just doing things. In Bath, we have projects with Green Vision, we have projects like the People's Kitchen, where we were disgusted that you see supermarkets throwing away loads of waste food that's kind of just in date, but they can't technically sell. We cooked it up and gave it away for free as soup. It's an obvious thing to do, no one objects to it, and it makes people a lot happier. And that's the sort of easy solution that we need to have. And we need to find a sustainable solution. We need to build, or not build, but we need to change our existing schools into green schools and start groups in our own schools rather than travel out to Bali necessarily to go and find one. So that's my story, and that's where I am. It's a really terrifying thing to confront, but you can do it, and I think we can do it together. We need to. There's a social change model that all the big environmental groups, that most of the big environmental groups I know use, and the youth use. And the model we talk about isn't about sort of mass protest. It isn't about changing things for better. It's basically about making friends. It sounds really corny, but if you start doing something and people start seeing that it's really easy, then it really takes off from there. So I implore you, talk to each other and just do something. Thanks.